B&B spoilers. Katie recruits Nick Marone. He's happy to get revenge on Bridge. The Bold and the Beautiful is getting back to its roots, and the fashion wars will be front and center again. Katie Spencer's new company will need textiles, and spoilers hint her ex-husband, Nick Marone, will be happy to help. Is Brooke going to regret kicking Jack to the curb in Italy? The captain is probably still bitter over Brooke Logan, Catherine Kelly Lang, picking Ridge Forrester, Torsten K, over him. Spoilers hint Katie might take advantage of the bad blood. Here's what's coming up next on Bold and Beautiful. The Captain's Revenge. Jack Wagner made a big soap comeback as Nick Marone in 2025. Brooke was single at the time, and the captain professed his love for his ex-wife and begged her for another shot. The Forrester Creations gang traveled to Italy, and Nick tried to use his textile contracts to sabotage Ridge's fashion show. In the end, Bridge reunited and Nick was left in Italy. The Bold and the Beautiful hasn't mentioned Nick Marone since the trip to Naples. But now that there's a new fashion company on the block, it makes sense that he could return again. Katie Logan and Dollar Bill, Don Diamant, are starting a fashion company from scratch and are going to need the best garments in the world to compete with Forrester Creations. That sounds like the perfect excuse to bring the fan fave back again. Nick Marone wasn't just married to Brooke, he also was married to her sister Katie in 2008. Katie and Nick almost had a child together after he left her niece Bridget, but unfortunately she miscarried. Will Nick Marone help Katie? Nick and Katie have a lot of history on the CBS soap, and they were on good terms a few months ago. If Katie reaches out to him and asks him for help fighting the Forresters and get back at Bridge, he will probably be happy to oblige. Would you like to see Nick Marone return to B&B again? Will he help Katie fight Bridge and the Forresters out of spite? The air in Los Angeles has turned cold, and we aren't just talking about the January weather. For fans of the Bold and the Beautiful, today's news brings a wave of very sad news, as the Logan sisters' bond isn't just fraying, it has officially snapped. In a move that no one saw coming, Katie Logan has reached across the ocean and into the past to recruit the one man who can truly dismantle Ridge and Brooke's destiny, Nick Marone. The Bridge, Brooke and Ridge, ship might be sailing smoothly for now, but a tidal wave named Captain Nick is on the horizon, and he is more than happy to help Katie get the revenge she craves. The breaking point: why Katie is turning villain. For years, Katie Logan has been the stable sister, the one who forgives, the one who heals. But after the recent legal battle over the Logan trademark, something inside her shifted. Watching Brooke dismiss her dreams, calling her too sensitive for the fashion industry, and predicting her failure was the final straw. But it wasn't just the business slight. It was the ghosts of the past. As Katie sat alone at Spencer Publications, replaying Brooke's condescending remarks, she wasn't just seeing a business rival. She was seeing the woman who repeatedly betrayed her with Bill Spencer. Brooke thinks she owns the Logan name, the Logan legacy, and every man in this town, a source close to the production teases. Katie is done being the footnote in Brooke's life story. She's ready to write her own chapter, and she needs a heavy hitter to help her do it. The return of the captain, Jack Wagner as Nick Marone. The casting news we've all been waiting for is finally here, but it comes with a bittersweet sting. While we are thrilled to see Jack Wagner reprise his role as the rugged, charismatic Nick Marone, his return isn't for a friendly family reunion. Nick Marone has his own history of heartbreak and rivalry with his half-brother, Ridge. For Nick, the chance to return to LA and stick it to the dressmaker, while reclaiming the woman who was once the love of his life, is an opportunity he can't resist. Why Nick is the perfect weapon for Katie. Historical leverage. Nick is one of the few men Brooke truly loved as deeply as Ridge. The rivalry, the animosity between Nick and Ridge is legendary. Nick views Ridge as a fly on his shoulder and has zero fear of the Forrester patriarch. The son, they share a son, Jack Marone, providing a permanent, unbreakable link to Brooke. The revenge plot, a new power alliance. The very sad element of this spoiler lies in the betrayal of sisterhood. Katie isn't just looking for a business partner. She is weaponizing Brooke's past to destroy her present. Reports suggest that Katie reaches out to Nick under the guise of family business. But the subtext is clear. She wants Nick to seduce Brooke away from Ridge. Hashtag the strategy. Strategy, objective. The Logan brand, Katie uses Nick's Marone Industries resources to fund her new fashion house, directly competing with Forrester Creations. The emotional siege, Nick arrives at a time when Brooke feels vulnerable, using their shared history and flashbacks to remind her of a life without Ridge's waffling. The revenge, once Brooke is hooked, Katie intends to reveal the manipulation, leaving Brooke with neither Ridge nor Nick, and no family name to fall back on. Bridge in peril. Is this the end of destiny? Ridge and Brooke are currently in a honeymoon phase, but as any B&B veteran knows, that is usually the precursor to a catastrophe. Ridge is already on edge following the trademark loss to Bill and Katie. When Nick Marone walks into the CEO office, unannounced and looking better than ever, the explosion will be felt across all of CBS daytime. The tragedy here is the collateral damage. Will Spencer and R.J. Forrester will be caught in the middle of a war between their mothers, and the Logan family may never recover from Katie's cold-blooded recruitment of Brooke's former flame. What this means for the fans. This storyline is a masterclass in high-stakes drama. While it's sad news to see the sisters at war, the engagement levels are through the roof. We're looking at high-octane confrontations, the first face-off between Ridge and Nick in years, emotional flashbacks, a trip down memory lane for longtime viewers of the Brooke-Nick-Ridge triangle, a darker Katie. Watching Heather Tom lean into a vengeful, calculated version of Katie Logan is sure to be award-worthy. Final thoughts. The bold and the beautiful is leaning hard into the hell hath no fury like a sister-scorned trope. And with Nick Marone back in the mix, the stakes have never been higher. Katie isn't just playing for keeps. She's playing for blood. Bridge in peril. Is this the end of destiny? Ridge and Brooke are currently in a honeymoon phase. But as any B&B veteran knows, that is usually the precursor to a catastrophe. Ridge is already on edge following the trademark loss to Bill and Katie. When Nick Marone walks into the CEO office, unannounced and looking better than ever, the explosion will be felt across all of CBS daytime. The tragedy here is the collateral damage. Will Spencer and R.J. Forrester will be caught in the middle of a war between their mothers, and the Logan family may never recover from Katie's cold-blooded recruitment of Brooke's former flame. What this means for the fans. This storyline is a masterclass in high-stakes drama. While it's sad news to see the sisters at war, the engagement levels are through the roof. Los Angeles, California. Today's major spoilers from the bold and the beautiful have shattered the hearts of fans around the world as old wounds reopen and loyalties are tested in the fashion capital. According to the latest reports, Katie Logan is actively recruiting Nick Marone, and sources say Nick is all too willing to help her strike back at Brooke Logan and Ridge Forrester. The result? A potentially emotional and destructive showdown fans didn't want but can hardly turn away from. Soap opera spy. This development isn't just another feud. This is legacy trauma, long-buried heartbreak, and sibling rivalry colliding with one of B&B's most beloved, yet most troubled, love triangles. It's a revenge narrative with deep emotional scars, and fans across social media are reacting with shock, outrage, and, in some cases, devastation. Here's the full story, and why this twist feels like a gut punch for longtime viewers. Fire the return of the captain. Nick Marone comes back into the fray. Nick Marone, aka the captain, played by Jack Wagner, isn't just any character. He's one of the most emotionally resonant figures in B&B history. Once married to Brooke Logan and Katie Logan, Nick's tumultuous history is part of soap lore. But after a long absence following a deeply painful heartbreak in Italy, most fans assumed his arc was closed, if bittersweet. Soap opera spy. Now, he's coming back, and not just to stir nostalgia. According to spoilers, Katie is reaching out to Nick to help her fashion venture challenge Forrester Creations, and to stick it to Brooke and Bridge. Nick reportedly welcomes the opportunity with open arms, not necessarily because of business ambitions, but because of hurt feelings and unresolved fury. Soap opera spy. In other words, Nick's return isn't neutral, it's fueled by heartbreak. And there may be no deeper well of heartbreak in B&B history than the pain Nick felt when Brooke chose Ridge yet again. Broken heart, why fans are sad and angry about this twist one. It feels like Brooke is once again at the center of pain. Brooke Logan has often stood at the forefront of this story for over 35 years, and while that sometimes feels like her purpose as a character, it can also feel inescapably tragic. In past arcs, Brooke's relationships with Ridge and Nick have been tumultuous, extramarital, and heartbreaking. With Ridge now solidly Bridge, re-involving Nick as a tool for retaliation feels cruelly cyclical, like he's being dragged back into pain he never fully recovered from. Wikipedia. Fans are already voicing their sadness. Why does Nick always have to be a chess piece in Brooke and Ridge's game? Reddit user on r/boldandbeautiful, paraphrased Reddit. This sentiment captures a common reaction, a beloved character being used as emotional ammunition. 2. Katie's desperation echoes a lifetime of being second best. Katie isn't asking Nick to help just for business reasons. She's hurting. She has lived her life in the long shadow of Brooke Logan. For years, fans have watched Katie struggle with insecurity, feeling sidelined while her older sister got the spotlight. The Logan trademark feud, a major subplot in recent episodes, highlights that pain in real time. Soap Central. Katie's emotional edge isn't just ambition, it's identity. To see her reach out to someone like Nick, someone whose heart was broken by Brooke, is to witness a sister finally snapping under years of hurt. As one fan wrote, "Team Katie all the way. She deserves a chance to shine without being overshadowed." Reddit user on r/boldandbeautiful Reddit. That reaction is passionate, and it's sad because it underscores how much emotional weight this feud carries. Chart decreasing, a revenge arc rooted in heartbreak, not victory. This isn't a typical business rivalry. It's personal. Nick isn't portrayed as a cold strategist. He's a man with a wounded heart, a history with both sisters, and a very real reason to feel betrayed. The spoilers hint that his willingness to help Katie stems from that emotional landscape. He wants to hurt Brooke's team because of the pain he still carries. Soap opera spy. That's a tragic motivation, not one rooted in noble ambition, but in revenge and emotional resentment. For fans who remember Nick's earlier storylines, his staircase moment with Brooke, his complicated feelings with Bridget, and his unresolved love, this feels like unfinished heartbreak. Wikipedia. And that pain resonates with viewers, not because they want tragedy, but because they've lived this history with these characters. Tornado, what this means for Brooke and Bridge. Brooke and Ridge's reunion has been central to B&B's recent direction. Their Bridge pairing has been both celebrated and critiqued, and any storyline that paints them as targets of revenge is sure to divide fans. MichaelFairmanTV.com. Their relationship now may face not just a business threat, but an emotional reckoning. If Nick helps Katie succeed, it's a public defeat for Forrester Creations. If Brooke and Ridge are portrayed as complacent or blind to everything happening behind them, it could shatter the idealized image of them as a united front. Some fans have already reacted. It's so sad because Brooke never learns. Ridge hurts her again and again. Now this mess? It feels like history repeating. Reddit fan comment Reddit. That sense of repetition, old wounds reopening, is exactly why today's spoilers feel sad and heavy. Crying face, why this twist hits hard for longtime viewers. Soap operas thrive on conflict, but this twist hits differently because it's emotional, relational, and rooted in years of backstory. It's not a random betrayal. It's a culmination of decades of heartbreak and rivalry. This storyline reminds fans that Nick's love for Brooke was genuine, not a plot device. That Katie's struggle for validation has been years in the making. That Brooke and Ridge's relationship, no matter how beloved, has caused so much pain. And because fans have invested emotional energy into these characters over decades, today's spoilers feel like a loss, not just drama. Thaw balloon fan reaction. Tears, debates, and what now? Across broadcast fan pages and social platforms, reactions are erupting, loudly crying face, sadness, and sympathy. Many fans feel sorrow for Nick and Katie, not because they want revenge, but because they deserve happiness and healing. Comments like, "Nick deserves better than being used like this." "Katie just wants respect, that's heartbreaking." Reflect a heavy emotional response. Brain debate and division. Some are debating whether this move is clever business strategy or a revenge move born of hurt. Others are bracing for the fallout. Will this destroy Bridge or simply make them stronger? This polarizing emotional engagement keeps the story trending, even if it's a tragically sad twist. Crystal ball, what could happen next? Here are a few possibilities that make this storyline so compelling and so heart-wrenching. Nick and Katie team up and outshine Forrester. A full-blown fashion battle could redefine the industry and hurt Ridge and Brooke's legacy. Old feelings return for Nick and Brooke. If sparks reignite, the emotional fallout could be devastating for Katie, Ridge, and fans alike. Brooke and Ridge fight back hard. A renewed alliance in love and business could reset the landscape. But at what emotional cost? No matter which path the writers take, this storyline promises heartbreak, tension, and emotional reckoning. Red Heart, Adhesive Bandage, final thoughts. A sad yet unforgettable turn. Today's spoiler news isn't just a plot twist. It's a story beat rooted in character. Has always been a place of promises and betrayals. But today it delivers something far darker. The Captain's Revenge isn't just a story of anger and retribution. It's a heartbreaking tale of loss, shattered loyalties, and a man pushed beyond the point of no return. What began as a voyage of hope has ended in devastation, leaving everyone involved forever changed. A captain forged by the sea and by loss. Captain Elias Rowan was once known as a fair and steady hand, a man whose word carried more weight than any anchor. His ship, the North Star, sailed not just with cargo but with trust. Crews followed him because he protected them. Ports welcomed him because he honored his deals. For years, Rowan believed the sea rewarded honesty and courage. That belief died the night the North Star burned. Sources close to the harbor say the fire spread unnaturally fast, too fast to be an accident. Rowan survived, dragged from the wreckage by sailors who would later admit they didn't recognize the man they pulled from the flames. He was alive, yes, but hollowed out. The ship that carried his life's work sank beneath the waves, and with it went the people he loved most. Among the dead was Mara Rowan, his wife, and first mate Jonah Hale, the brother he chose when blood failed him. Their loss didn't just break the captain's heart, it rewrote his soul. The betrayal no one wanted to believe. At first, whispers circulated about faulty lanterns or bad weather, but as the ashes cooled, a darker truth emerged. Cargo manifests had been altered. Dock records had vanished, and someone had profited enormously. The name that surfaced stunned everyone: Lucien Crowe. Crowe wasn't an enemy. He was a trusted partner, a merchant prince who toasted Rowan's successes and promised shared futures. The two men had stood shoulder to shoulder at banquets and funerals alike. But evidence mounted that Crowe orchestrated the sabotage to eliminate competition and seize control of critical trade routes. When confronted, Crowe denied everything with a smile that never reached his eyes. He offered condolences. He even funded a memorial. But Rowan saw it then. The lie beneath the kindness, the calculation behind the tears. That was the moment the captain died and the Avenger was born. Grief turns to obsession. Those closest to Rowan say his grief didn't explode. it congealed. He stopped sleeping. He stopped speaking. When he did talk, it was only of facts, figures, and routes. He studied tides the way others read prayers. Revenge became his compass. He sold what remained of his holdings and disappeared from the public eye. Months passed. Some believed he'd gone mad. Others said he'd drowned himself in the same waters that claimed his ship. They were wrong. Rowan returned with a new vessel, sleeker, faster, and nameless. No flag flew from her mast. No port claimed her. Sailors whispered that she appeared without warning and vanished just as quickly, leaving ruined deals and broken alliances in her wake. The legend of the captain's revenge was born. Collateral damage no one can ignore. But today's very sad news isn't just about a man seeking justice. It's about the cost of that pursuit. Innocent traders were caught in the crossfire as Crow's empire began to crumble. Contracts collapsed. Families lost livelihoods. The sea, once a provider, became a battlefield. Rowan justified every move as necessary. To him, Crow's world had to burn the way the North Star had burned. Yet each strike pushed him further from the man he once was. Crew members noticed the change. Orders came colder. Mercy grew scarce. One sailor reportedly begged Rowan to spare a rival ship carrying refugees. The captain's response was chilling. "The fire spared no one on my deck." The ship was sunk. Survivors were few. The moment that changed everything. Today's heartbreak centers on a single encounter that sources confirm happened at dawn. Rowan finally cornered Crow in the Narrows, a place infamous for wrecks and regrets. Crow's ship was trapped, engines failing, tides turning against him. Witnesses say Rowan boarded Crow's vessel personally. No weapons drawn, just words, the kind that cut deeper than steel. Crow confessed. He admitted the sabotage, the bribes, the greed. He begged not for his life, but for time to make things right. He spoke of children, of remorse, of a chance to repair the damage he'd caused. And for a moment, just a moment, Rowan wavered. That's when tragedy struck. A hidden explosive detonated, tearing through Crow's ship. Whether it was a fail-safe Crow installed long ago or a desperate act by one of his men remains unclear. The blast killed Crow instantly and critically wounded Rowan. A revenge that brought no peace. Rescuers found Rowan clinging to wreckage, blood in the water, eyes fixed on nothing. He was alive, but barely. As he was carried ashore, he reportedly whispered a single name, Mara. The man who had sacrificed everything for revenge had finally won and lost all at once. Crow was dead, his empire shattered. But the victory rang hollow, echoing with the cries of those hurt along the way. Doctors say Rowan may survive, but he will never return to the sea. The irony is cruel, a captain condemned to dry land, forced to live with the consequences of his choices. The aftermath, who pays the price? Ports across the coast are reeling. Trade routes remain unstable. Families mourn sailors lost in skirmishes that were never theirs to fight. And the legend of the captain's revenge has become a cautionary tale told in taverns and on docks. A reminder that vengeance consumes more than it avenges. Those who knew Rowan before the fire are left asking the hardest question of all. Was justice ever truly the goal? Or did grief steer the ship from the very start? Today's very sad truth. The captain's revenge ends not with triumph, but with silence. No cheers, no closure, just the wreckage of lives colliding with one man's pain. Revenge promised healing. It delivered only more loss. Today, the maritime world and the tight-knit community of seafaring adventurers are mourning a profound loss. In a tragedy that has sent shockwaves from the coastal docks to the deep blue horizons, we report the heartbreaking news surrounding the legendary vessel and the story known to many as the captain's revenge. What began as a journey of redemption has ended in a silent, somber finale. This is more than just a headline. It is the end of an era for those who believe that the sea holds the ultimate justice. The legend of the revenge. To understand why this news is so devastating, one must understand the legacy of the captain. For years, the captain's revenge was not just the name of a storied ship. It was a symbol of resilience. The captain, a figure of stoic determination, had spent a lifetime navigating the most treacherous waters on Earth, fueled by a singular mission to reclaim what was lost to the tide. Followers of this journey, ranging from maritime historians to casual dreamers, have watched the captain's relentless pursuit of a lost legacy. Whether it was a sunken treasure, a family name, or a battle against the elements, the Revenge stood for the idea that no matter how hard the world hits, you can always steer back into the storm. The events of the final voyage. The reports coming in today describe a scene of haunting stillness. Early this morning, search and rescue teams located the remains of the Revenge off the jagged coastlines that the captain had braved 100 times before. The details remain sparse as investigations continue. The narrative is clear. The sea, which the captain loved and fought with equal passion, has finally claimed its due. The last signal, at 3:14 a.m., a final, cryptic transmission was logged. It wasn't a distress call, but a brief sequence of coordinates. The very location where the captain's original journey began decades ago. The aftermath. Aerial footage shows the mast of the vessel partially submerged, a skeletal reminder of the power and majesty it once held. The silence, perhaps the saddest part of today's news, is the lack of survivors. The captain, who lived by the code of the ocean, appears to have gone down with the ship, completing a poetic, albeit tragic, circle. Why this hits so hard? In an age of digital noise and fleeting trends, the story of the captain's revenge offered something grounded and authentic. It represented the old world values, honor, persistence, and the raw struggle between man and nature. 1. The loss of a folk hero. The captain was a hero to the underdog. He wasn't a billionaire in a yacht. He was a master of his craft who worked with his hands and led with his heart. Today, we lose a piece of that grit. The Revenge wasn't just wood and iron. It was the manifestation of a human spirit that refused to say die. 2. The mystery of the unfinished quest. For those who followed the captain's log, there is a lingering sense of what if? Did he find what he was looking for in those final moments? The tragedy is compounded by the fact that we may never know if the Revenge was finally satisfied or if the captain died still reaching for a horizon that remained just out of grasp. 3. A community in mourning. From the harbors of Nova Scotia to the ports of Cape Town, candles are being lit tonight. The maritime community is small, and the loss of such a prominent figure and such a beautiful vessel feels like a death in the family. A timeline of the final hours. Time event status 01:00 a.m. vessel spotted on radar near the Devil's Teeth Reef. Weather worsening 02:45 a.m. heavy swells reported. The Revenge ceases standard radio checks. High alert 03:14 a.m. final coordinate transmission received. The silence begins 06:30 a.m. first light reveals debris field and submerged hull. Tragedy confirmed. The captain's final words, a legacy in writing. While the man and his ship are gone, the captain's Revenge leaves behind a legacy that will be studied for years. In his last published log entry, dated just 3 days ago, the captain wrote, "The sea does not care for your plans. It does not care for your grief or your gold. It only cares for your truth. If I do not return, know that I found my truth in the middle of the gale, and I was not afraid." These words are providing small comfort to the thousands of people currently sharing their condolences on social media. The hashtag the captain's revenge has begun to trend, as people share their own stories of how the captain's journey inspired them to keep moving through their own personal storms. What happens now? The news is still unfolding. Local authorities have announced a memorial service to be held at the harbor this coming Sunday. There are also talks of a permanent monument, a lighthouse, or a plaque to be placed at the coordinates of the final transmission. The Revenge is over, but the story is far from finished. Writers, filmmakers, and poets are already looking at how to preserve this modern-day odyssey. How you can pay your respects. If the story of the captain touched you, the family and crew associates have asked for the following. Support local sailors. Donate to maritime safety charities. Share the story. Keep the spirit of the Revenge alive by sharing the lessons of resilience the captain taught. A moment of silence. At sunset tonight, take a moment to look toward the horizon and remember those who dare to chase the impossible. Final thoughts. The sea always wins. We often forget that we are guests on this planet, especially on the water. Today's very sad news is a humbling reminder of that reality. The captain's revenge was a saga of human will. But today, the sea reminded us that it has the final say. Rest in peace, Captain. Your voyage has ended, but your legend is just beginning to sail.